So I saw another post on YouTube about the boys and how it's attacking the right or conservatives or Trump supporters. But it's like the show ended. It feels like months ago. I did watch the whole thing. I didn't feel personally attacked because the issues that the show was talking about, whether they mean it or not, because they never mention names or describe specific situations. You know, the issues that the show talks about are our whole culture and society in the West. The thing that's collapsing, the harder we try to collapsing. The thing that's turning into war, the harder we try to keep people from freeing themselves from it. I mean, the war has been constant to maintain whatever it is that we're maintaining, civilization. But yeah, I mean, they're trying, or at least the influencers online. I mean, it's like you can be a Trump supporter. There's a lot of people who are Trump supporters who are hardcore Democrats and liberals and stuff, or anarchists. So it's like, they'll be playing devil's advocate for conservatives, but it's like most Trump supporters are those people. The conservatives supported Trump for reasons that they say they do. Most of it's because Trump was letting the states have their power back, and he was pushing republic-based policies because that's what the country is supposed to be running on. So it's not that hard to fix things when you actually have a goal, you know. And a lot of people are trained to work in the system, and they end up maintaining these faulty systems. But just about, I mean, I'm trained to be an auditor. I've had my own experience solving problems of different kinds, and people are more than happy to change how they do things when they know that they can, when they're allowed to, because a lot of times people do notice how screwed up their work is, but there's nothing that they can do about it, because they don't know what else to do. You know, it's like it's either stick with the job, leave, or try to fix it, and fixing it's never really an option. I mean, I'm trained to fix things, and I've gone through hell trying to fix, the problems most people give up on, but a lot of that's because I didn't know how many people bank on those kind of problems, or how many of those kind of problems are there by design, because there's people with beliefs that believe those problems are necessary for humans to develop properly into whatever it is they think humans have to develop into. Because they can't mind their own business, and they have to raise everybody like they own everybody. Kind of like the left, trying to free everybody from their families and from their cultures that are so wrong, instead of taking the long path that works of diplomacy. Trump did that. It's easier to do diplomacy than it is to do war if you're not a crazy dumbass, because the what you end up with in the end is far more fulfilling, but when you have a culture full of people who, would sell out their siblings, you know, you, shit just doesn't work right. So, but again, most people are willing to let things change, if they know they're allowed to. So, but you got a lot of people who think that the only way to do things is with war because that's what they learned in college. That's not what they were taught, but that's what they learned. There's people with the exact same education as mine that have extreme nihilistic views on how things should run, and things that they've learned from the same classes I took, like most technological advances come during wartime. Well, I see that as unfortunate. Most of the people in the class sees that as we need war to make money, you know, because this shit's been going on for a long time, and that's the kind of culture they were raised in, and that's not the kind of culture I was raised in. But you know, I was raised in a military family, so we're cannon fodder basically, you know. So we're our culture is such that we don't really see those kinds of things typically, you know. And I say we as in, you know, because I'm kind of part of that culture, but uh, I've always been kind of outside of everything, so I still see it from an outside perspective, you know. But I understand it pretty well. Anyways, I'm gonna start going on tangents and shit, but yeah, the anti-Trumpers and the anti-everythings, they have no idea what they're doing or who they're against, and they're putting people into positions where they have to defend themselves, and most people don't know how to use diplomacy. And then the good guys judge the lack of diplomacy as an excuse to pursue further torment creation and suffering creation until a war starts and everybody starts making money and advancing technologies and getting contracts for their shit, you know, and winning their bets, you know. All the betting on the stock market increases and makes more money. I mean, it's like these people are insane. You know, these systems aren't normal parts of human society at all. At all. You know, I mean, it's like, at all. It's pretty crazy. You know, people with that kind of mindset normally wouldn't be able to exercise that style of living outside of their family and friends, you know, because people are naturally wary of strangers. So, you know, most people like that can only manipulate, you know, people that are close to them. But such is life now. Everybody's close to everybody because people had no idea who was already in there when all this technology was created or who was creating the technology. You know, who got rich and empowered by the technology. You know, look at who's panicking and everything that's happening after the Trump, whatever happened. I mean, it's like, I'd like to see him in person just to be sure, but the whole situation feels like 9/11 again. But, you know, it's like based on what I know, there's too many questions, you know, and you know, it's like I know what God can do, but I also know how manipulators use God. So, you know, thankfully, most people are very skeptical of that kind of thing, and the whole balance of control and power has been thrown out of whack. So, you know, it's most of these groups don't have the skill and the expertise that they had before Trump was pushed into office, and they don't even have the same skill and expertise as their culture did 50 years ago. I mean, it's like they got lazy and stupid, and they relying completely on culting everybody to control everybody, and everything's degrading down back into slave days as far as the mentality of everybody and the things people are willing to do to each other and how they're willing to use each other and exploit each other, and the dynamics of the economy in that regard. You know, things need to get back to simplicity and the republic, you know, where the laws are actually enforced. And by laws, I mean you can't infringe on other people's life, liberty, and happiness. And today, we're allowed to do that based on legal technicalities. Legalism has destroyed the Constitution and humanity and freedom. So that's why the Constitution said no lawyers, and we got to bring that back. I don't care how good lawyers are at giving advice. Even me, I'm an auditor. You know, it's like I have no problem supporting somebody, but don't put me in power. You know, it's like I'm not that kind of person. you know. But I'm more than happy to back somebody up, to help them get their job done, get done what they want to get done, because people in power should keep things simple. Whenever possible, they should delegate the authority to where it belongs, to the state, to the local. It's like when the local and the state request assistance from higher ups, then there you go. But most of the time, these people should be getting paid to do nothing, and that should be fine for everybody. That's the problem. It's like we've gone crazy with work and workload and efficiency and stuff, and we've completely lost the ability to actually get the job done. We do a lot more covering up now than we should have to, because of how hardcore the work environment is in most situations. I can't say most situations, in a lot of situations, because I've had a few different kinds of jobs, and a lot of places know they'll get into trouble for overworking their employees, so they won't make you push harder than you can, but then you get into office work where a lot of your job is thinking, and there's people who don't do that work that see you thinking, and they think you're doing nothing. They wish they could do your job. It makes you want to move to another planet, because that shit is everywhere. That's why shit can't get fixed, because there's too many overly emotional people in management. People who believe that emotions are magic, and they believe that they need to use them, and that they believe that they need to manipulate other people in order to get them to do what they want. And it creates an extremely hostile work environment where people can't be honest because they're afraid of what will happen if they say anything. So, and the whole West is turned into that. There's countries with laws that make the whole country like that. Those countries are destined to collapse if they don't stop doing that. If they don't give people their freedoms back, their countries will collapse, and it will have absolutely nothing to do with civil war. It'll just be because people will become so worn out and depressed, they'll just start giving up. And a lot of the die-hard people that were easy to trick into war have already sacrificed themselves in the bullshit that's been going on the past 10 years, especially in Ukraine. So all these groups don't have the skilled militaries that they used to have. You can. I mean, look at it. We gave technology. What country did we give? We gave these. Were they F-35s or those new F-16s? But we gave some new jets to some country in the East somewhere, and they could not maintain them. They just couldn't. They were too complicated. You know, they didn't have enough people trained to fix them, and that's like what always happens. With the corporate way of doing things. It's like we sell people stuff, and then those people who know how to use it get blown up in some attack, and then suddenly, they're in a crisis forever because they have all these advanced things like nuclear power plants that they can't run safely. And it's not safe to work there to run it because some enemy might throw a missile at you. So you end up having to invest your country's military to defend some failed corporate enterprise. And that's what the empire is. The empire is a failed corporate enterprise, made up by people who spend too much time in casinos and brothels, or grew up in those environments, and think that they're geniuses because everybody's patting each other on their backs, in our culture, pushing. Well, not everybody, but the people who make it up get pushed up. They don't know what they're doing. It's fucking insane. It's insane. You're lucky if people know what they're doing after they get the degree. I didn't know how broad my degree was, but I had an excuse. I had an illness that made it harder for me to understand things compared to someone who didn't have the illness. I kind of trained myself around it a little bit. I had a lot of people in my major that also had no idea what their major was for. Because they don't really tell you what the major is for. You're supposed to know. That's why you went into the major. But thankfully I didn't go in for the reason everybody else did. I went in because of intellectual curiosity, and I wasn't happy with how my first quarter in computer science went. So I went into IT. But it's not the way IT is. It is not IT the way everybody thinks it is. It's like I used to just say I work on computers because I did work on computers. That was like my hobby. But but a lot of people thought that's what IT was. Like I actually went to college to work on computers, and a whole bunch of people were like, "I don't have to go to college to work on computers. Look, I'm as smart as Steve. Let's start giving the government advice and shit like that." And it's like, I had no idea that shit was happening, but it was happening. That's a lot of the reason why shit got so bad, or I should say, so crazy, so abnormal. That's more appropriate, because without that interaction and dynamic, most people would have no idea anything's going on, and a lot of the bad things that are going on wouldn't be happening, because a lot of it's happening because of the overreactions of the people in power, feeling like they're losing control of everybody because they don't want to lose control over everybody. And when I started trying to help fix things, I had no idea all this shit was going on, because people treated me like I was fucking retarded, or I was too idealist, or whatnot. But they also knew that I knew a lot about what was going on, but it's like, I pretended I was okay with it because I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe in this country. People are fucking nuts, and they're involved in so many things, and, people who work on computers end up getting involved in helping people hide that kind of shit, so it's like, people have no idea, like, my major is actually auditing, which is very similar to investigating, which has a lot of overlapping with law enforcement, officially and mostly unofficially, because it's like, everybody's watching us, except I know I should say, I know who's watching us and why, and I use it to my advantage when I go around finding shady shit and scarring myself in the process. But still, it's like, when you have a crowd you're dragging around with you, you go around looking at shit and be like, is this really okay? The way, like, is this supposed to be here? Because based on what I know, there's ways to keep this from happening. So why is this happening? But the people looking on, since I'm keeping that conversation to myself mostly, I mean, not completely, I've spoken about it, but when I talk about it out loud, they really have no clue what I'm talking about, because they don't see me as being the kind of person that can know those things. So they get even more confused because they don't know how I know anything, and since my life includes a lot of like confessional priest type information, I can't say where I know a lot of stuff, because I don't want to get anybody, I don't, most people's lives are pretty bad in real life. I don't want to make their lives worse just to satisfy someone else's curiosity, where it won't actually benefit anybody, because the person whose curiosity that's being satisfied is completely powerless and useless in this situation. And them knowing might actually make things worse. Because most people who take it upon themselves to be good guys always make things worse, because they have no idea what's going on. And they literally end up taking out like a whole group of people when they're going after just one person. It's insanity, the good guys. So it makes things very like walking on eggshells, but that's part of what I was trained to do. That's part of my major, was to understand these things, and to be able to still present a summary of what's going on to the person who hired me, so that they can make the best decision possible. That's what I went to college for. It's like, I'm not just doing it because I don't want to do I don't want to do real work. That's what my degree is in. You know, and when I tried to use what I know how to do for the greater good, I became enemy number one to the stupid retards that run everything. So, basically because the retards are the experts, and they were asked, is what he's saying true? And they couldn't say yes or no because they had no fucking clue what the fuck's going on in real life. So they had to make shit up. And I can't be right. So everything I say is the opposite of what's true because I'm an anarchist and I'm doing exactly what I say I'm against. And since I'm against chaos making, then I must be for chaos making because the people making the decisions are a bunch of fucking retards. Who's helping make decisions? The people running social media, their managers, the managers above them, all the corporations that they're all connected with that do the exact same shit, all the way up every system of power above us. And it's effectively a gigantic casino security system doing God's work, helping protect the kids, or helping keep everyone from knowing what's going on with the kids and how the kids are used for entertainment, how pointing that out is gaslit like crazy. But that's how they raise the next generation of people in power because, power comes from within the culture that rules, and the ruling culture is pimps and prostitutes. That's it. They have the most power over people. They have the most power over the systems that control people. They got a bunch of people in nursing and medicine and politics and police. The underworld, the underworld is completely dominated by that culture. Everybody in that culture thinks it's human nature, but it's just another aspect of slavery. It's identical to slavery. The mentality, what ends up happening to your mind, the conditioning involved, suffering leading to enlightenment, that's all slavery conditioning. It literally goes back to Buddhism. Buddhism is the religion of slavery. It's the religion of coping. It's the religion of being a slave and being a master and being friends with each other. That's Buddhism. That's what it is. The Siddhartha guy was a child of effectively a large kingdom slave master. And Siddhartha was raised inside of a slave plantation, and he was taken care of by slaves. So, did he teach anything about slavery? I don't remember him. I don't know. I mean, I've only seen Little Buddha and listened to other Buddhists. They don't talk about slavery at all, which, today I don't find suspicious because they're house N-words. Their job is to control everybody, is to help control everybody, like all the other religions. This isn't new. This was there when we were born. So, it's okay to point it out and to notice what is in existence and not actually kept secret. Because we think we need to be controlled that way. We're taught that we need to be controlled that way because we're naturally evil. Because the suffering that we're put through from birth helps separate us from our connection with the Creator. And without the connection to the Creator, we don't even have the capability of animals when it comes to survival. Because we can't understand reality. We can't understand ourselves and how we're connected to it because we can't feel the connection. We're made isolated, and we're forced to rely on each other in ways that we shouldn't have to, in ways that allow deceptive and manipulative people to come into us and our groups and control us from within, because we can't tell the difference between them and a normal regular person, because we're disconnected. We don't understand ourselves. And if we can't understand ourselves, we don't have control over our lives. You know, if you can't understand yourself and you try to be an independent person that controls your life, it'll lead to disaster almost 100% of the time, because people can't stand that personality. It's too freakish to the slave, to the broken. You know, the only people who act that way are people who are manipulative, you know, that are trying to pretend, well, usually they're crazy, but they're trying to pretend that they're the real thing that the fake superstitions talk about. So, you know, sometimes people do that just to make cults. Anyways, I'm going on tangents. This is all on the boys thing. But yeah, that whole thing. Yeah. Basically, most people just need to stop trying to change other people. Stop trying to change other people. If you're going to help people, do it in person and sacrifice your life to it, or don't bother. If you're not willing to sacrifice your life to it, don't bother. Nobody wants your help. Nobody wants your help. Just give people money if you're going to help people with something. I mean, you can give people hands if they look like they need a hand, but that's in-person stuff. You know, that's you know, you're sacrificing your potential safety. The person could be crazy, you know, to help somebody, but you do it anyways. You know, you put those thoughts to the side, you know, because it doesn't seem that way. So, you know, you help somebody who looks like they're in need, you know, and it's not going to take that long. Most people do it. But when you hear something happening to somebody far away and you don't know how many people do that to scam people and get people to save them from justice, save themselves from justice that they deserve, then you really got to stop, you know, pulling in information from outside of your sphere of life, because you're too susceptible to liars, and you're going to end up having your money taken, your safety taken, and you're going to end up being used to do the same thing to somebody else. You know, that's one of the reasons why the whole Israel situation is so complex. You know, people keep trying to simplify it, and things keep getting fucked up. Things are fucked up, and they're not going to get fixed unless people are willing to address the serious issues of these tangled webs of manipulation and misinformation. And I don't mean like what most people call misinformation. I mean like people who believe things are a certain way and they're not, but they're trying to spread that to people because they think they're spreading the truth. You know, a lot of times they're just given a scam, and they're part of a pyramid scheme of information that they have no clue about. You know, but the way the system is right now, religious people who aren't the right kind of religion are screwed with, and the direction of force is towards the Middle East, and people's mental attention is manipulated to feel that religion leads to what seems to be mindless conflict. And that management I was talking about earlier pulls the strings to make sure that conflict keeps going, to prove to everybody else how bad religious extremism, fundamentalism, etc. is. They believe there's an end goal to where everybody's going to become Star Trek or something like that, enlightened or Buddhist or whatever. It's imaginary. It's completely brothel casino imagination. It's that culture. It's run completely on delusional imagination. gambling on magic and emotions. So it's insanity. It's what we're all dealing with. It's what this global culture is. It's what all those management layers are, going all the way to the top. Trump isn't so much, but we're all part of that culture. We are all part of that culture. There is no escape. We have to sit back, take a step back, and focus on how we're going to fix this in our individual lives. And we've given the plan. It's the same plan the founding fathers had, and that very wise people have had throughout history. Throughout history. Going back to the history that we're not even sure of the dates. Because God is real, the Creator is real, and we are literally part of it, and we're supposed to feel a connection to it. We're supposed to feel a connection to it. And Bill Gates and co. already said that that's some kind of evolutionary mutation that needs to be gotten rid of, and they are literally turning humanity into retards that are going to go extinct. At least everyone they've screwed with. Which is exactly what crazy people have been saying. So, while the victims keep defending their perpetrators and keep oppressing people who are trying to save them with the information that they need to save themselves, which isn't that complicated. It's not that complicated. The information's not that complicated. Stop taking the solutions to things without knowing exactly where they came from through history and why they existed in the first place. Not to mention the reality that they're intended to augment. Are they making it better, or are they actually making things worse? Because as an auditor, I personally know they don't know how nature actually works. So they literally cannot guarantee that the shit is safe that they're doing, or the ideas that they're spreading are safe. But it makes them a lot of money, and they already have the power. So, good Lord, this is what happens when I get up too early. Anyways, good luck, everybody. They're probably going to take it down because I said some word or something, or I talked about something that sounded a lot like something that no one's allowed to talk about, because we're free. We're in a free society. Internet spreads freedom, right? Isn't that what it was all about? Spreads freedom, or does it just spread dopamine addiction? It makes me feel good. Everyone should have it. Yeah. Brothel casino. That level of science and logic. It feels good. Anyways, good luck, everybody.